Thank you everyone for the support, and a special shout out to Eagle Eye and his Discord people for dropping by my channel. Now on to today's video.
Finally awake.
Hello everyone, Raven here, and welcome to my ultimate Minecraft player trap. It's completely hidden, completely self-resetting, and completely inescapable. I'm really proud of how fast I made it. The download link to this map is in the description below, and I'll now cover trap components you need to consider, as well as some trap designs I have here. Design 1. Sand held up by a scaffold. This using Redstone Ore or floating sand with string on top. You can detect the player and then send it to an observer for Redstone Ore, and then this will push out a piston to break all the scaffold, allowing the sand to fall. For the falling sand, the floating sand, you want to place this torch BUD below to activate the piston, and then make sure to put pressure plates below your lava or whatever, such that you can break the sand when it falls. I actually had the idea of making an entire adventure map based on this, kind of Raid the Tomb, Indiana Jones style, where stealing the item at the end of a temple will cause the entire structure of sand to fall, and maybe like falling sand can even create a dragon shape on the ground or anything. Yeah, that would be pretty cool concept. But yeah, I kind of lack the artistic talent to make such an adventure map. Design 2, a 4 wide pufferfish activated trap. A very fast opening, and you can have the pufferfish below the floor such that it's flush with the floor, or hidden above the ceiling, like this. For the flush with the floor design, since the pufferfish can only be at the side to detect players walking from this direction, you want to have a ledge here such that the trap does not activate prematurely, and it only activates as the player steps down from this ledge and walks forward. Design 3. The hay bale crusher. This can be linked to any trap you want, such as my 2x2 BUD Redstone Ore trap. Design 4. The infinitely long 2 wide hay bale crusher. This you can link to a 2 wide trap like this, which can similarly be activated using a pufferfish player detector. The first part of making a trap is to detect the player. The best way to do so is using a pufferfish. However, do note that for the pufferfish detector, every time you re-enter the game or reload the chunk, you need to reset the detector, as that causes the detector to activate. This is just another setup that instead of having the pufferfish detector be below the floor, it is now in the ceiling, such that when a player comes by and walk underneath it, the floor opens up. The tutorial on how to make a pufferfish player detector is in the description below, but what I want to add is how to make it flush with the ceiling. So you want a half slab fence and a signboard like this, and then you place down your pufferfish and fiddle with it and get a minecart to fall on it and puff up, such that the pufferfish enters the minecart. And then this is perfect. Fill in the water here and you can cover this up. Then once the minecart is in position, you can change this out with whatever block you want, and you can either make use of a piston or mine it out and replace it fast, and then you have it flush with the ceiling like this. Then the last step is to place down the gold pressure plate, and this one you either want to use a piston to help you knock out this signboard, or you can do it really fast, and then voila, this is how the pufferfish detector will work. Your output will be here. The pufferfish detector has a 5x5x5 area of detection, and you can have it flush with the floor like this, where the pufferfish will puff up. It's directly under this block. Or you can have it flush with the ceiling like this, and entity anywhere within this area will cause it to puff up and send out your signal like this. Now, another great way to detect a player is by having floating sand and placing string above it. When the player walks past, the string updates the sand and it all goes falling down. To build this setup, you can refer to my Minecraft landmine video I made previously. However, since we do not know when this bug of floating sand will be fixed, other alternatives would be the Redstone Ore. This is a great way to detect when a player walks past, as the Redstone Ore will light up and send a block update. The Redstone Ore can be covered by item frame, and then you can make it look like a welcome mat, or with snow, or with pressure plates, or with trapdoors. And upon walking on it, you can see that it sends a block update that can be picked up by observers. Or, in my previous video, I hooked this up to a block update detector to make another form of self-resetting trap. Another thing that we cannot discount is the pressure plate on top of a stone block. Now, for the second part, to trap the player, you want, say, the floor to open up. Ways to do that would be like linking the block update detector to pistons like I done previously, or you can have sand held out by scaffolds and then have a piston push it out so that the sand will fall. Similarly, this effect can be achieved by having sand stacked upon torches, and the piston would push this out. And yeah, in general, these traps are good to be hidden in snowy biomes, as not only the activation mechanism but the trap floor itself can be concealed by the fallen snow. And then another thing to note is that for the falling sand activation, what you can do to pick up the sand falling is actually using this block update detector based on torch burnout. When the sand lands here, a signal will be sent out like this, and then this can be used to activate the piston to push out your floor. But to have things resettable, you want to use piston systems like this, such that it can open up and then close back up. That was a 4 wide infinitely extendable version. You can also make something like this, which is just 2 wide but also infinitely extendable. Lastly, for killing the player, you can simply have a pitfall drop many blocks such that the player will fall to their death. But since there's elytra and or having water buckets, the player can easily avoid falling. Another way would be to drop them down to lava, but then you will not be able to collect their loot. The best system I could come up with was based off lock.zip's concept, where he was able to trap a player inside hay bale, since the hay bale takes just as long to destroy with any tools as your bare hands, and then by pushing the player back and forth quickly, there's no way the player can destroy any of the blocks, and you'll be trapped inside permanently until the device is switched off. But I modified it quite a bit, such that it's actually turned into a crusher. So as you can see, the pistons on top and below alternate, and this causes suffocation damage to the player. And I've tested it out even in peaceful mode, this can kill the player given enough time. And then subsequently you can collect his items using hoppers below this. I have also made a 2 wide infinitely expandable version such that you can have a larger area to trap your player and kill the player in. Another thing to consider would be minecart TNTs, which can be set up to be blown up instantaneously, and if placed in water you'd still be able to collect the player's loot and not destroy anything. As simple as this trap looks, it was infuriating as heck to design. You would think that this is very easy, you just need for it to go down 1 block and then to the side by 2 blocks. So something like this, down, to the side, to the side. But oh boy, the process of designing this was a huge pain. Now I have many designs littered across the map. Just look out for the glass on top of the builds, which shows a working design. The first issue I encountered is having to power the upward facing piston. And well, one of the easier ways to do it is to have a torch like this pointing out. The player is still able to fall through, but this is prone to sabotage as the player can knock it out by accident when falling through. But then again, so can the slime blocks and honey blocks easily be knocked out. So one way to avoid having a torch sticking out like that is to push and pull a target block out as well, so that it is powering the piston facing up. But this design is pretty clunky, pretty complicated, since I have 2 slime areas that I'm pushing out, and ultimately it is not flush with the wall, as you need a redstone placement like this. So going back to the torch system, it seems easy. You just need to power the torch to retract the piston. But the issue is when you power the torch, you're powering the block behind it, and when you pull this piston back, it would fire, and this gave a lot of headache. So what I'm forced to do is power this block temporarily, just long enough for this to retract and then be pulled back. I have 2 designs for how to power the torch here temporarily by using either pulses from an observer, or here using a comparator switching off after a delay. But these both designs result in quite a bit of delay for the trap to open, as well as it being very large. Ultimately, for the torch design, the last design I came up with is to make use of a block retracting to remove the power from the torch, and at the same time you no longer have the issue of this block behind here being powered by anything. So like this. And yeah, it's pretty flush with the wall, but somehow I was still not satisfied, so I went on to explore other designs. The first design I got without a torch was done by shifting the slime block down and out to the side, such that your upward facing piston can be shifted onto the wall, and then it looks like this. However, the number of slime blocks here caused it to hit the block limit, and then it left a gaping hole down here when the trap is open. So I need the piston down here to push up to block it. I had a lot of trouble powering the horizontal pistons, as the pistons are being pushed and pulled back and forth. So you can only say power them from the bottom or from the top, and at times I had to rely on BUD to power them, especially for the 1 wide design where the space constraint is even greater. There are also issues caused by BUD, by quasi-connectivity, where the adjacent pistons are being powered since they're all lined up. This can also cause the pistons to fire in the wrong sequence, and you also have times where pistons are not retracting because they are quasi-powered, or not extending as per the case of this piston down here, where I actually need a lamp to update it for it to extend. So yeah, there's a lot of considerations. Next, I tried making the design one wide, but as you can see, it is not entirely flush. There's one block here exposed, because you can extend it down like this, and everything will still push and pull properly, but there's a slight chance when you have a 2-block high honey like this that a falling player can actually stand here like this. But of course, that's a very rare occurrence, so if you want, you can extend all of them down to make it flush. But make sure you do it to all the blocks, including the slime blocks. For the one wide design, the firing sequence needs to be the top first, followed by the bottom, before pushing everything up. Because if you were to fire this piston first, followed by this one, it will actually block this from extending. And then another issue is that it's very difficult to power the top piston only, as if you power it from say the side or the back, the bottom piston will extend as well, and then this makes it very difficult to retract. So the top piston must either be BUD powered like this, or you can have a repeater on top of this block powering air, so that only the top piston fires. This is one of the first designs that I got working. It's quite compact. It retracts fine, but upon powering, the bottom piston doesn't fire. It requires 2 pulses from this observer. One simple workaround would be to for the input signal, have 2 pulses using a redstone line cutter like this. So as you can see, using this, it would extend and retract properly as it creates 2 pulses. Also, throughout the different designs, I had to be very careful about quasi-powering my pistons. Like for example, you cannot run a redstone line straight into the node block here. You have to power the block next to it, as if you run the line straight into the node block, powering the node block directly, it would cause this bottom piston to fire first, and you get the issue where the top piston would block the pushing up. The next design I tried was having 2 observers with alternating redstone lamps. As you know, redstone lamp turns on instantaneously, but it takes 1 extra tick to turn off. So you have this delay only upon turning off, and using the alternating lamps, I can do the extending and retracting properly. However, an issue about this is it's slightly slower than the final design I have. Then this design was suggested to me on Discord by the r/redstone, the Reddit community, by having observers rub each other like this, such that upon firing there's 2 pulses, but retracting there's only 1. However, this design is still slightly slower than the final design I have. The final design I settled on uses a piston to push a block to change the instrument type of the node block, then to give that second update for the bottom piston. Since node blocks, there's 3 ways to update it. You can change its powered state, you can change its instrument with the block underneath it, or you can change the node, but that's only possible by right-clicking. Alternatively, you can just use a piston on the node block directly to shove the block up and down to create the update, and yeah, that works fine too. Thank you everyone for watching. Please subscribe. I need like 900 more subscribers. Check out my other videos. Please share the videos, and till next time, see ya.